welcome, Mary. Welcome on. In Indian tradition, we do namaste. So, namaste.
Namaste means you and me are one.
Yeah.
It's
Namaste.
perfect. It's truth.
Welcome, Eric. All of us have heard the story of Anita Morzani, and again, we are going to listen from you. Many of us have not listened to your story, just heard and read few lines. So, first of all, my personal question to you before you introduce yourself: what motivated you to go for non-conventional method for healing of cancer, not the conventional methods?
Mhm. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of this journey today with all of your viewers. Again, as I said earlier before we went live, I hope that my story can inspire certain things within each and every one of you, because we are all on an amazing journey of self-discovery, of self-love, and each one of us will invite things into our lives from our soul's level to help us grow and learn and truly discover who we are as spiritual beings living in this incredible physical world. So thank you for letting me be here. And thank you for the question. What a wonderful question. I was actually going to get into that when I share my story, but let's go ahead and dive in. So the reason, gosh, there's multiple reasons I chose the solutions to my cancer diagnosis that I did. But the biggest reason I did is I was able to connect to an internal guidance within myself that was beyond my human body, beyond my conventional doctors, beyond the messages that this physical world was imposing on me and all of us as we live through this journey. And I was able to connect to a source that knew me more intricately, more delicately than anything that I could humanly understand. And this was the divine guidance that we all have within us. And it was such an interesting time period in my life because, and I will discuss this a little bit later, but we all have this personality or this human mind or this ego that is designed to help us survive in this world. And those thoughts and experiences are much, much different than the divine essence that we all carry, that is all knowing, all eternal. And I was able to sort through all of these messages coming in, all of the static in the human mind and the ego versus the divine mind, which is the all-knowing mind, which understands the reasons for all circumstances coming into our lives to help guide me through this process. And it was literally being able to connect to that source and that resource within me that I was able to choose natural treatments, natural supplements, diet change. I was truly divinely guided through the process. And I chose my divine mind, my divine guidance over my human mind, which was really quite loud and noisy and, very distracting. But truly, it was being able to settle into the silence of and the stillness of your being and lead from there. Does that make sense?
Yes, super, very clear, very clear. Then one question more comes before we come to your story and so that inspirational part. When you announce these things that I am not going for the conventional therapy to your family, friends, and to doctors especially, what was the reaction and what was the their words and prognosis for that?
Yeah, another great question, which I absolutely experienced with intensity through this process. So my conventional doctors were absolutely opposed to this. I was told point blank that I would die within 5 years if I did not do the treatments. The treatments that were recommended was surgery, for one, because I was originally diagnosed with a biopsy and I did not have clean margins. And so from the scientific perspective, cancer was still within my body. So they wanted me to do either a lumpectomy or full mastectomy on that side of the breast. And then I was to do, I believe it was 12 weeks of chemotherapy 8 weeks of radiation, and then they were going to put me on a drug for a year. After a year, they wanted me to remove my ovaries and just get everything out. So it was quite a extensive conventional treatment plan. And so, yeah, my doctors were not happy with me at all. And it was in those moments that I really needed to decide who was going to be in my healing group, you know, who was going to be my tribe, my team. Because the other tricky part was my father, my mother had passed at the time, which again is part of my story, which I'm happy to share. She passed of ovarian cancer. And so I did have an experience through her on what the conventional system looks like and actually what it does. But my father was still alive. And of course, he was terrified of a cancer diagnosis because he had lost his wife due to cancer and treatments and everything that we went through as a family back then. So I could talk to him. I could tell him that I was going this direction, but I could hear and feel within his being, he was terrified. He did not want to lose me, which I completely understood. However, he could not get on board with my plan. I would visit with other doctors. In fact, I went to a dentist appointment, and this dentist basically shamed me, saying, how could I not do the treatment? I need to think about my kids, my family, my life, and I was being selfish. So the reaction that I got from outside with the community, the conventional community, most doctors, almost all doctors, many of my friends, absolutely could not understand my decision. And that was what I found so fascinating down the road, not immediately, because immediately I felt completely unsupported. I felt abandoned. I felt alone. And yet here was this inner guidance that was saying, Mary, trust me, I got you. Just listen and follow. And it was that silent, still voice coming from the divine mind that I was at. It really, the miracle, I have always told people, the miracle isn't that my body healed, because our bodies can heal. The miracle was I was able to listen to the soft, subtle voice that said, Mary, trust me, I've got you. As opposed to the human mind and all the craziness and everything that's coming at you at the time when you're told that you're going to die if you don't follow a certain plan. And I chose to follow the still voice within me. That's the miracle that I experienced through my journey.
Wonderful.
Wow.
I am having goosebumps right now. So
I got goosebumps too.
and I can see that. So it's like reliving the memories and going through the same thing. We want to listen whole story right now, so that there are many persons who are suffering from various diseases, and we know that there is a strong connection between mind and body, and body has a great intelligence to heal anything, and we all are working for that. We all are on the journey, and to motivate, inspire other person, other humans, other souls. So we want to listen that story.
Wonderful. Well, I'm happy to share. So I was asked to do a PowerPoint presentation, which I normally don't do. So this can be very interesting. Bear with me if I have some technical issues. However, I'm going to try to transfer over to my PowerPoint presentation, and we'll just begin the journey from there. Does that sound good?
You were sharing your story about your conversation with your father. So how he took your decision?
Are you asking me how he took my decision?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my father, I remember calling him right after my initial diagnosis. I had some time, I guess it might have been a little bit, maybe 2-3 weeks after my, well, of course I called him when I was diagnosed, but I also called him 2-3 weeks when I had finally decided which direction I was going to go. And when I spoke with him on the phone, I actually do discuss this in my book a little bit. Like I said, he was just terrified because I was raised, my mother was a operating room nurse. My father is an electrical engineer. And so my background is very much deep into the medical field, the science field, the very like the physical biology is how you take care of things. You listen to the professional, you listen to your doctors, you look at the science, you go with the mainstream because that's what we believed as a family was truth. We believed that that's what you do and that's what works. The interesting thing is my mother followed that path. She followed all of the medical science recommendations, everything. I was 18 years old when she was diagnosed, and I was old enough to be able to walk with her through the process and see exactly what was going on in her physical life, because it's our physical lives where the rubber meets the road. Science is only a theory of what can happen in the physical world, because what I have learned through my journey is it's the spiritual that manifests the physical. And so it is the precursor to everything that happens in your physical world, within your physical body. And yet that's not how I was raised. That's not what we believe to be truth and how to walk through our lives. So my father, being an electrical engineer and very heady, to say the least, he was terrified. He thought I was making the wrong decision. And even though he didn't really say it, because we're also a family that doesn't share emotions. We don't talk about deeper things. We don't talk about spirituality. You know, our framework of spirituality was wrapped around the Catholic Church and a very compartmentalized idea of faith. And so that's what he knows. He's very structured, and this thing that was out of his structure, that was out of his belief system, he could not support. And yet he wanted to support me. I could feel that, but he didn't know how. And he was surrounded within his own grief, his own fears, that I was making a terrible, terrible choice. And through most of my journey, I did not talk or communicate a whole lot with my family and or friends that could not get on board with me, because I had enough fear of my own that I was trying to manage and work with. Believe me, there was enough going on, and I had enough of that coming at me because the majority of my friends could not accept what I was doing. I had maybe 3 people in my group. I had my ND that was totally on board with me. I had my husband who just wanted me to live, and he was going to support me the best that he could, but even he didn't know how to do it. I mean, this is brand new territory that we were exploring. Nobody knew. And I had maybe one coworker that I worked with that was on board with me. Most people, they wanted me to live, but they really thought I was doing the wrong thing. And so I didn't have that close support group like you might have in a conventional breast cancer support group. I really had me, myself, and my guides holding me, surrounding me, and allowing me to know what the right choice was. And even then, within myself, there was part of me that questioned it. And so it's that internal battle when you go through these journeys that is incredible. But looking back on the other side, it was my lifesaver to be able to connect to this inner guidance, period. Because this inner guidance knew what my human mind was dealing with and was able to give me tools in the process to help me reconnect, to help me feel safe, to help me make the next step forward, even when the whole world felt like it was against me. And so, yeah, my father, I really didn't have much contact with him. I decided to do a blog as opposed to talk to different people, because that way I could be in my own space with my own decisions to be able to speak what I was doing clearly on a blog without people interrupting and attacking me in the process. And so I invited people to come into my blog where they could read, but I didn't have to have that pressure And so that was one of the tools I used personally to continue to walk my own path, which is somewhat different because, for instance, in Radical Hope, one of the things that is vital is having that support system. And while I will agree with that, you got to make sure it's the right support system. Yeah, in Radical Hope, exactly. And so my support system was very, very small, but I did it intentionally because I didn't want the negative stuff coming at me. I just couldn't do it all. So does that help answer your question?
Yes, it's like it happens always when you decide these kind of things, there is minority of person who supports you, and because in conventional tradition it's said that doctors knows the best, and if father is an engineer, he knows that there is positive node, negative node, and current flows like this. There is no other way that current can flow. There is material is there. So right now we are very excited to know step by step how your inner voice evolved and what was the stages you have gone through, and there must be some eureka moment also. So we all wanted to listen your whole journey from beginning. And so if someone is listening right now, or after that they'll listen on the YouTube channel or other platforms also, so they can see something, they can perceive something, that there is other ways also that for healing, and they can trust the things, they can trust their inner voice also.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. And the one thing I would say to anyone going through a healing journey or a illness or a disease that comes into your life is the very first step is to be able to differentiate between your human mind and all of these messages that are coming from the outside world, from outside people, from the medical system, whatever it might be, and then be able to let that dissolve and connect to the inner guidance and inner wisdom. If you can do that one thing and be able to truly trust that, even if it goes against some other things that are coming in your head, that is the first step, and you will never, ever go wrong with that step. Every single tool, every single person, every single treatment, every single diet, every recommendation that comes into your life, you're going to know whether to follow it or to let it go, because you are divinely connected. Most important thing in any healing journey, and that is true for every single person, not just me, every single person. So with that, I'm going to dive into my PowerPoint presentation. Let me see if we can get this efficiently.
Sure.
All right, share that.
Yeah.
And
Healing
are we there?
mind.
Did I?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Let
Your
me
slide
go
is,
from, how's that?
yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Okay, I didn't know how this would work, but yeah, so healing with divine mind. And we're going to go through this. If I believe that I can hear different people. I don't know if I can see comments, but if I can't, if you have questions during the presentation, please post your comments, or we'll go through a question and answer session, but write them down and I'm happy to address anything. I'm really an open book. So, okay, so let's begin. So who am I? I'm Mary Rust. I am, well, many of you probably do not know this, but I was the 1999 Fitness Olympia champion. And so basically what that is that is a sport where you are judged or whatever on your fitness level. So I did a aerobic routine, as well as they looked at the symmetry of my physical body and the way that it was designed. And they're looking for a very fit personality. And so in 1991, I actually won the world championship for fitness. And so what's so ironic with my story is I was literally the fittest woman in the world in 1999, and I was later diagnosed with cancer. And from a physical standpoint, a biological standpoint, none of it made sense. None of it made sense because I didn't have, I wasn't a heavy drinker. I don't go out and eat fast food. I wasn't overweight. I was literally the picture perfect version of what you would consider healthy. And I was diagnosed with cancer. And that is part of my journey that I think is so fascinating. I am also a certified health and life coach. I am a holistic practitioner. And if you notice, I spell the word whole as in WHOLE rather than the original form of the word, which is holistic. The reason I do that is because I have discovered how important it is to address all aspects of self when you are trying to heal. This means your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, and your spiritual body, because all of these aspects are truly integrated and tied together. And unfortunately, the majority of our conventional system is really focusing on only the physical body. And unfortunately, I feel that is a grave mistake because we are so much more than our physical body. I am a natural breast cancer thriver, meaning survival was not an option for me. The word survival really kind of sounds awful. It sounds difficult. I wanted to thrive. I wanted to do more than survive. And this is what I'm going to share, how I did it and what I discovered in the process. I recently wrote a book, Living Proof. I released it last year. It was a book that was, again, divinely guided. The book came out in 10 days with actually way more words than what's in the physical book, but it shares my full story. It takes you through my journey. We walk hand in hand in what I was going through, what was happening within my thoughts. And the way the book came out is it came out in words and messages from my divine mind and my human mind, and the conflict that I walked through going through my journey, and how I was able to truly dive into divine guidance and trust and follow that. I'm also a mother, a wife, a friend, a confidant, but overall, I am an individual walking this journey through you, which we all are. We all decided to come into this unique school of earth and experience life, to learn, to grow, to thrive, and to evolve. And so that's kind of the background of who I am. So let's get into my story. What is my story? How did I go from the fittest woman in the world to receiving a cancer diagnosis that made absolutely no sense? Well, it started in 1999 when I won the title, and everything was going great. And it was literally like I was a magician and the world was just at my fingertips. Everything that I chose to do, chose to manifest happened. And then one day it just stopped. I ended up getting pregnant shortly after the Fitness Olympia, which I was thrilled with because I always wanted to be a mother. Always, always, always. It was part of my life's call. Well, all of my sponsors, the big nutrition companies, the magazines, they wanted nothing to do with a pregnant woman at this time. This was right before pregnancy actually became popular. So while I, in my mind, was thinking, wow, we can do some great programs, we can follow the pregnancy, we can do fit pregnancy, we can do pregnancy after having a baby, we can do baby and kid workouts. But no, all of my sponsors basically said, Mary, we envision the fit model to be thin and look good in a bikini. And it was very eye-opening that I was completely dropped from everything. The big contract I just signed with GSC was canceled. And basically my career came to a stop. I was devastated. This was something that I had worked so hard for, and in a matter of seconds after winning the biggest title in the world, they wanted nothing to do me, and it really hit hard. I went into kind of a depression, was trying to pull up my bootstraps, and I had to get my mind in the game because I was going to be a mom and I wanted to be the best mom for my kids. So I stuffed all of that emotion down and tried to get my mindset on being the best mom in the world. And as a mother, for those of you that have had children, you know that being a mother and having children, at least for me, was a complete and total shock. I didn't have a clue how difficult it would be. And because I wanted to be the best mom in the world, I really put everything, all of my personal needs aside, and I dived into being a mom. And so I had a baby boy, his name's Logan, and then I had my baby girl, Hannah. And life was good, I thought, but on the inside, I was completely struggling, trying to be the best mom in the world. My husband had his own business, so I had no help from him with raising the kids. And I just continued to pour everything I had into the kids, but I forgot about attending the inner pieces of myself, what I personally needed. Well, as most of you know who have done inner work, that's not the best thing to do. You cannot totally disregard your inner pieces in your inner world and try to project your happiness on other people. Well, so there I was, struggling to be a mom, feeling completely alone, married, and having no help from my husband. And then all of a sudden, my husband's business started to fail. It was year 2006, and the market completely tanked and crashed. So not only did I lose my dream job, we lost our business, we ended up losing our house, and we were living off of credit cards, and it looked to be no end in the future. My family and I decided to move to a small town, move away from my hometown of Loveland, which had all of my family, all of my friends, and try to start over, try to get a bigger start. And we did. We moved to Gillette, Wyoming. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And we were trying to make a new beginning. And in the first year that we were there, I heard the words that no one wants to hear. My annual appointment discovered that I had cancer. And so literally my world went from being everything handed to me, from everything working out, to absolutely everything falling apart. I was completely broken. We had to move our house. In fact, we lost our house, moved town. So I had to move away from friends and family, struggling, trying to make ends meet, living off of credit cards, having these two beautiful babies that I didn't know how we were going to feed or take care of. And then I get a call of cancer. And it was literally the call that completely broke me in order to save me. In fact, at this point in time, I didn't even know how broken I was, but it was the call from cancer that literally changed my life. And as I was working through the diagnosis, there was something within me that was calling me to explore something more. And I was struggling between going the conventional route versus going a natural route. And I remember specifically hearing my mother's voice. And she was telling me, Mary, this is not the way to heal cancer. There must be another way, a way that the body can heal and restore itself. My mother was so brilliant. Right before she passed, and I had explained earlier when we were visiting that my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer when I was 18 years old. My mother was my best friend. It was devastating to hear this news, especially when you're 18. We were just getting to that point that we were becoming friends and developing a new relationship. And all of a sudden, my mother has cancer. And of course, at that point in time, I thought cancer was a death sentence, which for her, she did lose her physical life. But in the meantime, I was able to watch her go through this process. She went from a healthy, vibrant soul woman to a very sick cancer patient. Again, she chose conventional treatment. So I was able to follow her, walk with her through chemotherapy, radiation, drug treatment. And I saw her go from a healthy, vibrant woman to a very depleted, sick cancer patient. She survived 4 years. I walked with her through the whole process. And I remember she got to a point that her body could no longer tolerate the treatments. She was living off of feeding tubes. And at that point in her life, she had decided this really isn't living life. And she decided to go off the feeding tubes. I was there with her when she made the decision. And we had about a week of time before she passed away. I remember a moment that we were sitting in her room on the bed, and we were actually discussing her funeral arrangements. We were talking about the dress that she was going to wear in her funeral. And it was such a beautiful moment between her and I, of course, very challenging. But as we were looking through the closet, through the dress that she was going to wear, it was her favorite dress. She looked at me and her eyes were sparkling. And she said, "Mary, this isn't the way to cure cancer." And she was referring to the chemotherapy, the treatments. She wanted so much to live, but she knew she wasn't going to. But she gave me this message that day. This is not the way to heal cancer. There must be another way, a way the body can heal it and restore itself. And we just sat there in tears, hand in hand, arm in arm, sharing this moment. And I was so disappointed. Why didn't my mom have the chance to heal herself? Why couldn't she do this? Why did this message happen too late? But what I realized is that message wasn't meant for her. It was meant for me. And when I had my cancer diagnosis, years later, I specifically heard her voice again. And when I was trying to decide between conventional medicine and conventional versus a natural approach, I heard her voice and she said, "Mary, this is not the way to heal cancer. There must be another way." And this was part of the reason I was able to move through and choose another way, is because I heard my mother's voice. It was coming from the same stillness, the same divine wisdom that told me, trust me, there is another way, follow me. No matter what happens, I have you. And that was the reason I was able to move through. And not only did I find another way to heal cancer, I healed so much more. I healed on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And I found another way to live. Literally, cancer was the call that I was able to answer, and not everybody is, but I was able to answer, and I found another way to live. And so that is the foundation of my story. When people ask me, what is it? What did you do to heal from cancer? And it's so difficult to put into words because what I experienced was beyond words. It's beyond physical levels. It's beyond physical treatments, beyond physical supplements, diet, and everything. But what was channeled through me is the healing formula, which I'm sharing with you today. The healing formula is so simple. And when you get to the truth of the matter and what life is, it really is very simple, but it's our human mind that tries to make it very complicated. But the formula I heard was detox plus nourish equals healing. The healing happens spontaneously when you take care of all aspects of self by detoxing and nourishing the self. And what I mean by all aspects of self, I was told you detox and nourish your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, and your spiritual body, and healing spontaneously happens. And so this is the formula that I give people and that I share with others, because this is the foundation for all healing. And so I'd like to go into this healing formula with giving everybody the 5 key factors that I used using this formula and how I walk through the process with my own life. What's interesting as well with me is my physical body healed before I ever understood the other aspects of myself, meaning the mental, emotional, and spiritual factors. What happened with me was very organic as far as my body's physical healing, but my healing wasn't done when I was cancer-free. My healing continued beyond that, which I found very fascinating. So let's dive into these key factors and hopefully just give you a few ideas on how you can attend to these factors of your own life. So key number 1, detox and nourish your physical body. There are so many ways that we can play with our physical body. And this is what the conventional system and even the naturopath system really focuses on. But it is not the whole piece of the puzzle. However, it is an important piece. So when I talk about our physical body, I'm actually talking about your inside and outside world, your physical body as well as your physical world, because they are one and the same. So our inside world, some of the ways that we can attend to our inside world is through a natural diet. There are so many books and theories on diet out there, and there's constantly new diets coming up. Now we're hearing about keto or potentially carnivore. Well, the reality is we are all different beings. And so everyone is going to respond to what they put and ingest in their body entirely differently. What I have found to be the best foundation to start with and to play with is a natural diet. What God has given us with plants, animals, what is physically in our world from the most natural perspective is a perfect place to start. When I was researching different diets with cancer, one of the things that came up was an all vegetarian diet. And I was all on board with the vegetarian diet, and I tried it. And it literally, my hair started falling out. I started losing a ton of weight, which I didn't have a lot of weight to begin with. And so by exploring and experiencing that, I found that an all vegetarian diet for me personally didn't work really well. And so I included natural meats. I ate a lot of game meat, but I got rid of all of the conventionally processed stuff. And so that's what worked well for me. It doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, but I do recommend at least starting natural, organic, things that the earth provides. You can eat those. Things provided or processed in a factory, avoid them. And it's amazing what our body can do when you start integrating the natural world. I use supplements and herbs. I worked with an ND that created a regimen for me based on the symptoms that I was having. Now there's actually a test called the RGCC test. It's based out of Greek. It's a blood test. It can actually test and your cancer cells that you might have to see what natural and or conventional treatments might work for you. It's an incredible tool that you can use. But again, a lot goes back to trial and error. What works with your body? Try something, get in tune to your body and listen to what it says. Your body is incredibly intelligent. Another piece I used was exercise and movement, getting the lymphatic system on board, helping it with detox, moving, infusing your body with oxygen, super, super important. And then you may be led to outside treatments. Maybe it's acupuncture, Reiki, biofields, pulse electric magnetic frequencies. This is where tuning into your divine guidance can absolutely help you. And maybe you'll be led to one specific treatment, and after you use it for a while, it's just not working. That is viable information. It's okay to change your mind or change your directions based on your experience. Absolutely vital. This is your journey. You get to decide and you get to be in relationship how you want to. Our outside world, definitely detoxing and nourishing your body from the outside world. Take a look at the products you use on your body, your cosmetics, lotions, perfumes, sunscreen. All of these things will infuse into your skin. I recommend natural products. Your body does not know how to synthesize all these synthetics. At least it does try, but it can adjust your system. Home products, look at your cleaning products, aerosols, home fragrances, pollution. Are you in a heavily populated area? Do you need to get fresh air? Air filtration, maybe that's something you're led to. And then we need to look at our energetic world. We are surrounded by frequencies, EMF frequencies, microwaves, power lines, you know, other things that you can do to protect, to detox and nourish your body from the energetic world. So again, these are just some ideas to think about. How are you guided and led? Experiment with it, but listen to your body. Don't try to get out of your body to receive the messages. Your body has important things to say. Key number 2, detox and nourish your mental body. So our mental body is composed of all of our thoughts and our belief systems. Everyone's thoughts and beliefs, everyone's truths are completely different. I'm sure you've noticed that. These are the thoughts and the beliefs that are created and bound by your human mind. And they're different from everybody. These are the things that form your personality. They form your experience. The content created in your human mind range from the years 1 to 7. These are the delicate times that our bodies are programmed with all of our mental activity, our personalities. So when we talk about the human mind, this is the mind. These are the thoughts and the beliefs. It's the reactive mind from past experience. Its job is to protect you and let your body survive. It actually has some very good properties. I'm not saying that we should demonize the human mind. No, like if a tiger is running at you, the human mind instantly recognizes that and gets you moving to get out of the tiger's path because it wants to survive. It is to protect the human body. However, the majority of the collective consciousness is working and living through our human mind's consciousness, which it's missing out on a whole nother aspect of who we really are. The human mind is programmed. It's not necessarily the truth of our eternal being, but a lot of times we get so deep into the human mind, we think that's who we are, and it's not all of who we are. In contrast, the divine mind is our intuitive mind from infinite eternal wisdom. It's who we are beyond our physical body. And so it knows why our physical lives exist. It knows why circumstances are coming into our lives. It knows what's going on in your human mind and can deliver you wisdom that can help you walk through all of the trauma or the tragedies or the suffering or the fear. It knows it is safe and eternal, and it can give you messages that you cannot receive from your physical world. And one of the ways I like to get into the divine mind's presence is through a stillness practice. I mentioned this in my book, and if we have time today, we're going to actually do a stillness practice. In stillness practice, we calm and cool the human mind so we can connect to the still divine mind that lies within us, where all of our answers to our questions can be received. And so that's a little bit about our mental body, understanding that we almost have two minds, if you want to say it that way. Our human mind that is delved into the reactive mind, and then we have our divine mind that absolutely knows who we are. And this next slide is this is from my book and gives you some of the attributes of the divine mind, our unlimited mind, and our human mind, which is our limited mind. This is how you can tell when you are aware of your thoughts. Which thoughts are these coming from? Are these thoughts based in love or fear? Are these thoughts based in peace or chaos? And as you look through this list, as you settle yourself and start to listen to your thoughts, you can ask yourself these questions. Which mind is speaking to me right now? Which mind do I want to follow? Following the divine mind is going to lead you into all of the thoughts on the left side. Leading with your human mind is going to lead you with all the thoughts from the right side. And when we finally begin to pause in the middle of our lives and think about, which mind do I really want to live and perceive my life from? And what cancer taught me is it helped me become aware of my human mind and all of these thoughts of fear and survival and worry, anxiety, suffering. And it led me directly into my divine mind, where I found love and peace. I found wisdom. I was able to surrender into this beautiful space that led and guided me directly through my path. Let's go to key number 3. We're going to detox and nourish our emotional body, which is very much a part of our being. And typically we are being led through our human feelings rather than divine feelings. It's similar to the mind, but instead of thoughts, we need to become aware of our feelings. These are messages from our soul. These are messages that our body can deliver through us. Now, feelings and emotions, I somewhat like to separate those, because emotions typically are coming from our human feelings. They're those reactive things that come up and they scare us. Feelings are more of intuition. And there is a difference between those raw emotions, those reactive emotions, and these intuitive hits, these intuitive feelings. They're much softer and sometimes they're harder to connect to, but you can get very good at this practice, and then you know which emotions are speaking to you and which emotions do you want to feel. So our human feelings are those low vibrations. This is shame, guilt, fear, resentment. Divine feelings, peace, calmness, safety, all of those things. And one of the practices that I was able and I needed to have going through this process, because when you have a cancer diagnosis, you are hit with a ton of feelings, scary feelings, fear of death, wondering if you're making the right decisions. So EFT was the practice that I used, where I was able to surround all of my thoughts, all of these human feelings with divine love. And it heals them, it calms them. It's a beautiful practice. If you're not familiar with it, please look into it. So this is a chart that I have in my book. Thriving feelings, which is our divine feelings, versus surviving feelings, which is our human feelings. And you can see the difference when you're able to pause, when you're in the middle of a crisis or something's going on and you're feeling intense feelings. Feel them. What are they? What's going on in your body? Are these feelings that are coming up from your human feelings or your divine feelings? And what you can do with the process of EFT is surround your human feelings, the ones that are terrified. It's like that inner child that doesn't know what to do. And you can completely surround them with these divine feelings, the divine being that you are that knows how to unravel all of the human feelings that's going on. And it's such a beautiful healing practice. And you can do this in any time, any space. Moving on, we're going to go to key number 4. Detox and nourish your spiritual body. In my interpretation, for what I've learned, our spiritual body is actually completely pure, completely whole. It really doesn't need any detox and nourishing. However, if you have created a spiritual body from the concepts within your human mind, that's the part we need to detox. When I was diving deeper into my spiritual body, and again, earlier I mentioned I was raised Catholic. And so spirituality and religion, I was kind of raised and thought that religion is what spirituality is. And I found that was completely untrue. All of the boxes that I put myself in with needing to be a good little girl, all the guilt surrounded in religion, a God outside of self, all of those things were beginning to unravel in me because my divine being was unraveling them and teaching me what true spirituality is, teaching me who I truly am as a divine being, as a divine creation with all the attributes of my divine creator. And from a human perspective, I didn't think that's who I was. I thought I was a human being and I was just surviving in this crazy world. And what my soul was trying to teach me is, no, Mary, you are divine creation with all the attributes of your creator. And it takes probably several lifetimes to fully understand who we are, to fully understand this living presence within us that animates our entire lives, not only our physical body, but our physical world. And so it was bringing me into this awareness. How am I living and perceiving my life? Am I living my life from my human perspective or divine perspective? And it became a game for me. This was after my physical body healed, but I began to explore who I am as a spiritual being living in this physical world. And I began this openness. Healing begins with an openness and a willingness to change my perspective. I literally needed to change and question all of my thoughts and beliefs, everything I thought life was, and open to something more, something more. And this something more was calling me to surrender everything I thought life was, everything on how I thought it worked, and surrender into divine wisdom. I had to make a conscious choice to let go and live from my divine being. And my divine being was asking me to know and trust its guidance. Even though I was receiving different message from everyone in my physical world, I needed to know and trust that everything, including a cancer diagnosis, including all of these things coming at me, was happening for my well-being. It was happening for my divine purpose. It was happening for my growth. It wasn't a scary thing. Cancer, from our human mind's perspective, is terrifying. From divine perspective, it was brilliant because it was teaching me to completely dissolve all of my thoughts, beliefs, and open to something more. Life wanted more for me. My soul wanted more for me. And it was teaching me to be the divine being that I was, that you are. It was leading me directly into my I am presence, which directs everything in life. It directs everything in our physical body and our physical world. It is the energy and information that creates this physical world we live in. And one of the things that came to me is the statement, "Be still and know that I am God." And that was one of the statements that continually flowed through me as I was going through my process, because my human mind would take over in the middle of it and I would get crazy and wild. And all of a sudden this message, be still and know that I am God. And then it separated this message. The word be was be within your body. Be that which you are. The next word, still your mind, Mary. Still the chaos that runs, the thoughts and the beliefs that are driving you crazy, and connect with your divine mind. The word know who you are. Know this stillness and presence that lies within you, within your heart center. Connect to that knowing that you are loved, that you are taken care of, that I have you. Know that I am. You, Mary, are the I am. You are me. We are the same. You are uniquely created in my presence. You are this presence. I am God. We are one. And it's this universal source that guides everything. And so whenever you get into that situation where the world gets a little crazy, be still and know that you are, I am God. And so this is the spiritual place that my soul was taking me. Key number 5, life purpose, living your soul's purpose. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was living what I thought was my purpose, and I really was, but I was living this purpose from all the context within my human mind. What cancer taught me and the journey that it brought me through was a spiritual awakening to living my life purpose for my soul's purpose, because our human purpose and our soul's purpose are quite different. And until you're able to connect to that essence of who you are, you're living your life from a human perspective. And there, if you are called, not everyone's called, but if you are called, there is a purpose that your soul wants you to live. And the purpose of your soul's life is for connection, expression, expansion, and evolution, which is quite different than what the world preaches us. Your soul's purpose, it's why you have come into this human experience, why you have the personality that you do, why you have the conflicts that come into your life, why you have the situations that come into your life. And each human experience is different, but you came for the experience that is coming into your life right now. And it is incredible and beautiful from your soul's perspective, not always from your human perspective. Your soul's why should make you cry. So when you fully connect into your soul's purpose for doing and being who and what you are, it will come from a deep emotion and feeling state. And it's very personal for you. So I was living my life for everybody else before I was diagnosed for cancer. I was living my life as a mother, and I wanted to be the perfect mother. I wanted to be the best at my profession, and it took me to being the fittest woman in the world. I wanted to do everything for everybody else, and yet I completely disregarded everything that I needed for me. I completely disregarded all of my emotions, and I stuffed them. And all of a sudden they came up and they manifested as cancer. When you connect to your soul's why, you begin to align your thoughts, your feelings, your actions with divine purpose. It means that your thoughts come from and inspired from divine thoughts. Your feelings are divine feelings, and your actions and what you do, who you are in life, your state of being is completely aligned with your divine potential. And so that is what cancer taught me. It taught me to live from this perspective. I had no idea that I was missing the mark. I had no clue. I was living from my human mind, and everything that the world was telling me, I was trying to be a version of that. And cancer came into my life as my soul's calling to say, Mary, you're not living the life that I wanted you to live, which is a life full of peace, compassion, love. It's a life of thriving versus surviving. And that was truly the blessing that I learned by walking my journey, by following my heart. And from a human perspective, when you have a cancer diagnosis, all you want to do is for the cancer to go away. That's it. And then you begin to live your life from your human perspective again. That's not what happened with me. My life completely changed, and it was totally worth everything I had to walk through to get here. And so in a nutshell, that's my story. I'm actually going to stop sharing this screen and come back into the Zoom group.
If someone has any question, you can type in the chat box so we can ask Mary. Before that, Mary, I have few questions.
Absolutely.
One question is that if someone is suffering from cancer right now, what will be your suggestion? What will be your talk to him or her that what he or she should do? Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, invariably.
Yes.
Prescription by
So
Mary.
yes. So this has been one of the most difficult pieces to overcome for a newly diagnosed cancer patient. And the reason is, at least this is my interpretation of the reason, also because I lived it, because I understand that fear. The fear is almost unbearable. In fact, biologically, your brain literally shuts down and you go into this numb state. I actually experienced that. I remember receiving that diagnosis and I literally numbed out, like I left my body because I couldn't even handle the situation because the fear was too great. And that's a coping mechanism, is we go numb, we shut off. And I have found with consulting different cancer patients, because they'll come to me, they hear my story, all they want to do is live. I get that. I totally get that. Yet, because of our upbringing with the conventional system, and because everything we see on media, everything we see in our television programs, the only thing you see on the television program is chemo treatments. And you see this person go through these awful chemo treatments, they lose their hair, they get sick. This is portrayed on TV. And even with my mother's experience, this is what happened to her. I saw her go from a very healthy woman to get very, very sick. And so this is our version of what cancer is. It is literally do treatments, get sick, die. And so that's what immediately goes through your mind when you get a cancer diagnosis. That's what I thought. And then my human mind started spinning. I started thinking about my kids and I'm like, oh my God, my kids are going to lose their mom. And I don't want that for them. I know what it's like to lose a mom. And I immediately went back to when I lost my mom, which you could tell through my voice. It's a very tender moment. And all of that fear and panic and all of those feelings came rushing back in. Why? Because this is what it's like to live a human life. It is full of everything, emotions and thoughts. And so I get that fear, and you want to do everything you can. The problem is you've been programmed to think that conventional treatment is all that there is. And it's very difficult to be able to make a decision that goes against conventional doctors that have these brilliant educations. They spent a lifetime, they spent thousands and thousands of dollars to get this education to help people who have cancer. And yet it's all they know. The treatment is all they know, and they believe in it. This is truth to them. And they believe that they're helping people by giving people chemotherapy and radiation and these toxic treatments. They're proven toxic. I don't think anybody denies that. You can see what they do to the human body, but they don't know any other way. And again, that's why I say the miracle was that I was able to touch into my own guidance, as well as my past experience. One thing I didn't touch on is my experience with becoming the fittest woman in the world through, I used diet, I used weight training, I engaged completely and fully with my body to make physical changes within it by doing those things. And so thank God. And it was through my soul's design that I had that experience first, because it gave me a huge understanding of how powerful our bodies are to change them physically through diet and working and connecting to my body. And so I think I had an advantage to be able to move through a more natural system because of my background. Not everybody has that. Remember, you have to work with people's backgrounds. And so here's the other thing I want to touch on. I touch on it with my book. The mind is so powerful that if you believe something to be true, then you got to follow where your mind's at right now, because otherwise your mind can sabotage you. And I say this because if someone fully, truly believes in the conventional system and chemotherapy is going to cure and heal them, you better follow that path. Because if I gave them the advice to say, oh no, that's a terrible thing to do, you got to go natural, everybody needs to go natural, it worked for me, it's going to work for you. Not necessarily, because remember, your human mind is part of your process. And so what I will get people to do is to help them connect to where they are. If they can connect to their divine guidance, which might be deeply rooted into their human mind, then we start there and we ask questions to them. And we get them into a meditative state where they're able to get out of the chaos of their mind and connect to their heart center and begin to ask questions from there and allow their souls to bring up their best next step. And it might not be a natural process right away, but you start with where they're at and you add what they're able to do. Are they able to add a stillness practice? That would be probably the number one thing I would say. Get them to connect to their divine guidance. Get them to trust their divine guidance, which is absolutely challenging when you haven't done that in the past, because most people want to revert to their human mind. It's what they know. It's what they were brought up with. And get them to start those practices. When something comes up for them, it might be like a color, or it might be a person that comes into their mind. I encourage them, well, then let's start there. Let's reach out to that person. Maybe acupuncture comes up and they might say, you know, I've always heard good things about acupuncture. Great. Let's start an acupuncture appointment. Let's see how it feels with you. You can ask them about diet. How do you feel about diet? And in the back of their mind, they're like, oh yeah, I could really change my diet. I could do better with that. Yeah, that's your divine guidance trying to inspire you to do it. It's like, let's support that. Maybe there's a book that comes up in their mind. Great. Let's start on that book. If someone would have told me that all I needed to do was to connect to my divine guidance and trust it and get into that state of being, wouldn't have done it. My human mind was not ready to process that. But what I was able to do, I was able to connect to my past experience that I know what our bodies can do when we love and support them. I started there. I changed my diet. I connected with an ND that started speaking my language. Like, I connected with her more than I connected with my conventional doctors. So I was able to listen to her advice. Supplements. I resonated with supplements because I took supplements back when I competed. I got on a natural supplement regimen that helped to support my body. I didn't even begin some of the mind stuff, the emotional stuff, and spiritual stuff until after my body was physically healed. I wasn't ready for it. If someone were to tell me that you just need to connect to your I am presence and be that living expression and your body will change, wouldn't have heard it at the time. Couldn't have done it. So I start with where the client, where the person is at. What can they begin to integrate to help them with their steps? And the only person, the only resource that can answer that is their divine guidance. Not me, not me. And when I started doing this, that was a mistake that I made. I thought everybody needed to go to the natural route. And boy, did I get resistance on that. Boy, life handed it to me. But what I've learned through my path is if we can begin to connect to that on a daily basis, and it's not through just meditation, this is like living life with divine. You get messages all the time. You know, your life becomes meditation. And it's an absolutely beautiful experience. Life is your meditation, because the human mind can get very concentrated on sitting down in your 1 hour in the morning or whenever you might have a meditation practice, and then it becomes just a tool. It doesn't integrate with life. Your connection only happens in meditation instead of all of your life. And it's a very interesting process to watch people go through that. Great tool, absolutely wonderful tool. It's a place to start. But where I like to bring people is allowing divine in every piece of your life. When you're drinking tea, when you're doing dishes, when you're definitely talking and being with somebody else. That's one of the most powerful times to have those divine experiences with each other. So yeah, the fear is great. If meditation isn't always good for everybody, obviously everyone has their own thing, but when people are in that fear state, one of the tools that I used, because there were times that I couldn't get out of it either, was EFT. And it's such a simple tool. And I really didn't understand the process of it at all when I started. I just started it, right? And sometimes that's how you have to begin these practices, is you just do it. You don't know how it works. You don't know why it works. Doesn't matter. Just do it. But just do it. And the thing that I worked with first is I have cancer. And it's just like the fear that was wrapped around that. And as I worked with EFT and saying, even though I have cancer, I completely love and accept myself. So it's taking that fear of whatever it is, or that circumstance. If there's a life circumstance, you can use it with relationships. It's acknowledging that it's there. You know, you're not suppressing it. You're not pushing it away. You're not trying to ignore it. It's like, no, I'm going to be with this thing. And that's what EFT does. I have cancer. Okay, here it is. You know, what am I going to do? I have cancer. And so these are the human feelings, thoughts that you're like struggling with. You take those and then you wrap it with, but I totally and completely, this is unconditionally, love and accept myself. And it takes that fear and just starts to envelope it and wrap it. And it's the divine presence that untangles it. It's nothing we do with our human mind or a perception from our human mind. Our human mind's the one that created the issue. It can't uncreate it. It's the divine presence that can dissolve any situation. And that's the thing I loved EFT. I didn't know how it worked. I later get it. That's my interpretation of what EFT does. It takes those things and it wraps it in unconditional love. That's why love is the most healing power in the world.